Can you pay an expensive price to save a loved one? Find out in this interesting story. This is the story of a young girl named Ife. Ife sat by her father's bedside, her heart heavy with worry. The old man's labored breathing filled the small room, reminding him of how close he was to the end. Ife couldn't bear the thought of losing him, but the doctors had been clear. Without an expensive treatment, her father wouldn't make it. Mr. Odogu had always been around like a shadow. He was wealthy, powerful, and had eyes for Ife for as long as she could remember. Ife knew what he wanted, and the thought of it made her skin crawl. But her father's life was on the line, and she had no other option. The day Ife received the devastating news, she knew her world would never be the same. The doctor's word echoed in her mind as she walked home. Without the surgery, your father won't survive more than a month. Ife's heart ached with every step. How could she possibly raise such an enormous amount of money in such a short time? She had tried everything, borrowing from friends and family, selling their belongings, but it wasn't enough. There was only one person left who could help. Mr. Odogu. Ife, my dear. Mr. Odogu's voice was smooth, like oil on water. You know I've always cared for you and your father. What can I do to help? Ife took a deep breath, her hands trembling. Papa needs surgery, Mr. Odogu. I don't have the money and I don't know where else to turn. Mr. Odogu's eye gleamed with something Ife couldn't quite place. Of course, my dear, I'll help you, but you know there's always a price. The air in the room seemed to thicken. Ife knew what he meant. She had known for years. Mr. Odogu had wanted her, and now he saw his chance. Anything, Mr. Odogu, I'll do anything to save Papa. He smiled, a predatory gleam in his eyes. You know what I want, Ife? That night, Ife couldn't sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about her father and the decision she had to make. Could she really go through with it? Could she sacrifice herself to save him? She thought about her mother, who had passed away years ago. If her mother were here, she would have known what to do. Ife wished she could talk to her, ask her for guidance, but she was alone in this. The next morning, Ife went to the market to buy some vegetables. As she walked through the crowded stalls, she saw familiar faces. Her neighbors, her friends, they greeted her warmly, unaware of the turmoil inside her. She smiled back, trying to hide her pain. In the evening, Ife visited her best friend, Ada. Ada had always been there for her, through thick and thin. Ife needed someone to talk to, someone who would understand. Ada, I don't know what to do, Ife said, her voice breaking. Papa is dying and I can't afford the surgery. Mr. Odogu offered to help, but Ada's eye widened. But what, Ife? Ife took a deep breath. But he wants something in return, something I can't give. Ada's face softened with understanding. Oh, Ife, I'm so sorry. This is a terrible situation, but you have to do what's best for your father. Ife nodded with tears in her eyes. I know, but it's so hard. Ada hugged her tightly. I'm here for you, whatever you decide. The night was dark and the air heavy with expectation. Ife stood outside Mr. Odogu's mansion, her heart beating fast. She felt like she was walking into a trap, but she had no choice. Her father's life depended on it. Mr. Odogu welcomed her with open arms, his touch lingering longer than necessary. Come in, Ife, let's discuss your father's treatment. They sat in his lavish living room. Mr. Odogu poured 2 glasses of wine, handing one to Ife. To your father's health, he said, raising his glass. Ife took a sip, trying to steady her nerves. When can you arrange the surgery? Tomorrow, he replied, leaning closer. But first, we need to settle our agreement. Ife felt her stomach turn. She knew this moment was coming, but it didn't make it any easier. She nodded, unable to trust her voice. Mr. Odogwu led her to his bedroom, his hand firm on her waist. Ife thought of her father, the man who raised her, loved her and now lay dying. She steeled herself for what was to come, knowing that it was the only way to save him. The next morning, Ife woke up in Mr. Odogwu's bed, feeling empty and broken. But she had done what he had to do. She dressed quickly and left, avoiding Mr. Odogwu's gaze. True to his words, Mr. Odogwu arranged the surgery. Ife's father was taken to the hospital and the doctors worked their magic. After hours of waiting, the surgeon emerged, a smile on his face. The surgery was successful. Your father will recover. Ife felt a rush of relief so intense that it brought her to her knees. She had saved her father, but at what cost? Weeks passed, and Ife's father grew stronger each day. He never knew the price his daughter had paid for his life. Ife kept it to herself, the secret burning within her. Mr. Odogwu continued to lurk in the shadows, reminding her of the sacrifice she made. One day, Ife was tending to her father. He looked at her with concern. Ife, you've been so quiet lately. Is everything all right? Ife forcefully smiled. Yes, Papa, everything is fine. I'm just tired. Her father nodded, satisfied with her answer. But Ife knew she couldn't keep up the pretense forever. She needed to find a way to move on, to reclaim her life. One afternoon, Ada came to visit. They sat in the garden, the sun casting long shadows on the ground. How's your father? Ada asked, breaking the silence. He's getting better every day, Ife replied. Thanks to Mr. Odogwu. Ada frowned. And how are you? Ife looked away, unable to meet her friend's eye. I'm managing. Ada reached out and took Ife's hand. You don't have to pretend with me, Ife. I know this has been hard for you. Ife's eyes filled with tears. It's been so difficult. Ada, I did what I'd had to do, but I feel like I've lost a part of myself. Ada hugged her tightly. You did what you had to do to save your father. That doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you brave. One evening, as Ife was walking home, she saw Mr. Odogwu's car parked outside the house. Her heart sank. She knew this day would come, but she wasn't ready. Mr. Odogwu stepped out of the car, a smile on his face. Ife, my dear, how is your father? He's doing well, thanks to you, Ife replied, trying to keep her voice steady. I'm glad to hear that, Mr. Odogwu said, with a smile on his face. And how are you? I am fine, Ife said, her voice barely above a whisper. Mr. Odogwu stepped closer, his eyes gleaming. You know, Ife, I've been thinking, now that your father is better, maybe we could spend some more time together. Ife's heart throbbed. She had hoped their arrangement was a one-time thing, but it was clear Mr. Odogwu had other plans. I don't think that's a good idea, Ife stammered. Mr. Odogwu's smile faded. Ife, you owe me. I saved your father's life. Ife felt a flood of anger, and I paid you for it. Mr. Odogwu's eyes narrowed. Is that how you see it? Yes, Ife replied, her voice shaking. I did what I had to do to save my father, but that doesn't mean you own me. Mr. Odogwu's expression hardened. Be careful, Ife. You don't want to make an enemy of me. Ife stood her ground. I'm not afraid of you, Mr. Odogwu. You got what you wanted. Now leave me and my family alone. Mr. Odogwu glared at her for a moment, then turned and walked back to his car. Ife watched him drive away, her heart racing. She knew she had made a powerful enemy, but she felt a sense of relief. She had stood up for herself, and it felt good. One evening, As Ife was returning from the market, she felt a presence behind her. Turning, she saw Mr. Odogwu. His face was dark with anger. "You think you can just dismiss me like that?" he hissed, grabbing her arm. "Mr. Odogwu, please. I just want to be left alone." His grip tightened. "You owe me, Ife. I saved your father's life. You will repay me." Tears welled up in Ife's eyes. "I've already paid you. Mr. Odogwu, please let me go." Mr. Odogwu leaned in closer, his breath hot against her ear. "If you don't do as I say, I'll make sure everyone knows what you did. Your father, your friends, everyone. Do you understand?" Ife felt a chill run down her spine. She nodded, unable to speak. "Good," he said, releasing her arm. "I'll be in touch." That night, Ife lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. She couldn't let her father find out what she had done. It would break his heart, but how could she keep Mr. Odogwu at bay? The next morning, Ife's father noticed the bruise on her arm. "What happened, Ife?" he asked, his voice full of concern. Ife quickly pulled her sleeve down. "It's nothing, Papa, just a little accident." Her father frowned. "You've been so quiet lately. Is something wrong?" Ife forced a smile. "I'm fine, Papa. Just a bit tired from all the studying." Her father nodded, but Ife could see the worry in his eyes. She hated lying to him, but she couldn't bear the thought of him knowing the truth. Days turned into weeks, and Ife continued to live in fear of Mr. Odogwu's next move. One afternoon, while she was at the market, she ran into Ada. "Ife, you look terrible," Ada said, her eyes filled with concern. "What's going on?" Ife hesitated, but she couldn't hold it in any longer. "Ada, I need your help. Mr. Odogwu is threatening me." Ada's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" Ife took a deep breath and told Ada everything. The surgery, the deal with Mr. Odogwu, his threat. Ada's face grew pale. "Oh, Ife, I'm so sorry you had to go through this. But you don't have to face it alone. We'll figure something out." Ada and Ife spent the next few days coming up with a plan. They needed to find a way to expose Mr. Odogwu without putting Ife or her father in danger. One evening, Ada came over to Ife's house with a determined look on her face. "I have an idea," she said. "We need to gather evidence against Mr. Odogwu. If we can prove what he has done, we can go to the authorities." Ife nodded, feeling a glimmer of hope. "How do we do that?" Ada smiled. "Leave it to me. I know someone who can help." Ada's friend, Emeka, who was a tech-savvy young man who had a knack for solving problems. When Ada explained the situation, he agreed to help. "We need to get Mr. Odogwu on record, admitting to what he has done." Emeka said, "I have a plan, but it's risky." Ife was nervous, but she knew it was the only way to free herself from Mr. Odogwu's grasp. They set the plan in motion. One evening, Ife received a call from Mr. Odogwu demanding to meet her at his house. With a heavy heart, she agreed. Emeka had equipped her with a small recording device hidden in her clothes. As Ife entered Mr. Odogwu's mansion, she felt a surge of fear, but she steeled herself, knowing that this was her chance to end it all. Mr. Odogwu greeted her with a smug smile. "I'm glad you came to your senses, Ife." Ife forced a smile. "What do you want, Mr. Odogwu?" He stepped closer, his eyes gleaming. "You know what I want. You belong to me now. You promised to help my father. I did what you asked. Why can't you leave us alone?" Mr. Odogwu's smile faded. "Because I don't like being disobeyed, Ife. And if you ever think about crossing me, I'll make sure everyone knows your secret." Ife's heart pounded as she realized the recording device was capturing every word. She needed to get out of there. "I understand," she said, backing away, "but I need some time." Mr. Odogwu's eyes narrowed. "Don't take too long, Ife." Ife rushed back to Ada and Emeka, her heart racing. Emeka quickly transferred the recording to his laptop and they listened to Mr. Odogwu's threat. "This is it," Emeka said, his voice filled with excitement. "We have him." They took the evidence to the local authorities, explaining everything. The police listened to the recording and assured them that they would take action. A few days later, Mr. Odogwu was arrested and the news spread quickly and the community was shocked. Ife felt a sense of relief. The nightmare was finally over. Ife's father, who had been kept in the dark, was confused by the sudden turn of events. When Ife finally told him the truth, he was devastated, but grateful for her sacrifice. "Ife, you did what you had to do to save me," he said, tears in his eyes. "I'm so sorry you had to go through that." Ife hugged her father tightly. "It's over now, Papa. We can finally move on." Thank you for watching and listening. Please don't forget to like and subscribe for more.